Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm thrilled to be talking about the IFC film American Star. We are joined today by director Gonzalo López-Gallego and actor and producer Ian McShane. And Gonzalo, starting with you, I love the way that you've kind of taken this idea of a genre and a story of a hitman, kind of going out for the last job, but you've really circumvented the expectation of what that looks like on screen, because it's so much about his interior world and this kind of day-by-day slice of life as we're following him that's very intimate. And I was just interested in how you worked to really shape it in that direction.
For me, to know exactly how I wanted to do it, and that means that I'm not gonna be afraid of going on the set. I have to feel really confident about what I'm doing. I need to work a lot beforehand and to think a lot about how I want to do it. And in every case, it's about the story and about the character. And I was 100% sure that I wanted to follow this character because it's his story. And I wanted to know how was the perfect way to approach his point of view and be respectful with that point of view, because I wanted to be with him like in a documentary or like in a TV show. I wanted to be with him all the time. So that was the first thing that was somehow shaping the style of the movie, because when you decide something like that, you know that you're not going to use any kind of camera angle and you're not going to put the camera here or there. You know that you have a reason because you're following him. So you know how he's going to listen and how he's going to look at things. That was the first thing. When I talked to the director of photography, Jose David Montero, about that idea, then he came up with a great idea of doing the whole movie just with one lens, because that was respecting that point of view. So first thing was we were not losing our time deciding, oh, is this a 50? Is this a 75? Is it? No. We're just going to go for this one. We thought a lot about which one was the right one.
And which one was it?
I'm not going to tell you.
I know what it was.
and we just follow that. We broke that rule here and there for specific reasons, because we needed to go wider in some moment because of scope and landscape. But in terms of following him in the story, we were just like 95% consistent with that decision. That was a decision that was also shaping the style of the movie, because when you go just for one lens, unconsciously, it shapes it. It does something to it. And then it was the island. When you get to the island and you see those incredible landscapes, probably you have the risk of falling on portraying it in a beautiful way, because it's like an incredible place. But I was more interested in the scars of the ground, in the greenness and dirtiness and like those colors, because it's a beautiful island that you can love or you can hate. So we wanted to also portray that in the movie, because that was an important confrontation, like Wilson. Why is Wilson loving that place, and why Ryan is hating it? He said it reminds me of Blackpool, But Wilson understands the island and understands what's happening there. So in the end, it becomes something really subjective, because it's a personal opinion of a director that just follows ideas and a passion, and you feel like those decisions make sense, that you are taking the right decisions by choosing those rules. But it is true that I love to create my own rules. I don't love to not know what I'm going to do. I love to improvise if it needs to be improvised in some situation and if it's necessary. But to do a good improvisation, you have to do your homework, like a lot of homework. So then you're ready to improvise. And it's a director's rule, but it's an actor's rule as well. So with that in mind, we created this set of rules for our board game. And then when you have that, is when you're able to break your own rules to find a specific situations, to find a specific moment. So if we're following Wilson always from his over the shoulder, always with him, and we never do that to another character, it's just his point of view, what he sees and him. Then there's an important scene in the movie when Gloria gets out of the car, and then suddenly you understand that it's the moment of breaking those rules because it's going to be more powerful. But if you break your rules many times in the film, then it loses the magic. I don't know. It was a long answer for that question. I hope it helped.
It was, but I genuinely love all of those details and the amount of thought. And coming over to you, Ian, I mean, you've crafted such an amazing performance. And really, when you step back and look at the fact that, you know, we don't even hear you speak a word of dialogue for, I think, 7 or 8 minutes at the beginning of the film, and so much is the interior subtext of the character to learn about him. What are the unique aspects that come in shaping a performance like that, where you're in almost every single frame and there's so much of the inside world that's never spoken out loud?
Homework's important, as Gonzalo said. I mean, I sort of, you know the guy before you do it. It's also important to me to put on the suit, the shoes. I found the right shoes. I mean, I say that not lightly. I went, the most important thing, it was like when the character that Adam plays says to him, you're born in that suit. I mean, he's a guy he's practiced in his profession. He's a government operative. He goes there to do a job. The intelligence is flawed, but he decides to go against his first rule and stay on the island. And he actually buys a shirt so he can, I mean, as a gesture towards, going for lunch with her mum or when Gloria says, come and see them. And he knows every time he does something, he's not doing what he should be doing, but he's drawn to the island. He's drawn to the ship. Something about the situation he's in at this particular time has made him go against what his natural instincts would always be. But that's human nature. And it's, flawed, but important, in his case, in this. Yeah. And he meets people that he normally wouldn't meet. I mean, he wouldn't put himself in the position. And he takes advantage of it by actually interacting with them. And you see, and he casts some wonderful actors to work with. And again, we had the chance to work beforehand for a few days. But again, I can't express a lot enough about the finding the suit, finding the right pair of shoes, and then you go from there. You don't want to change half the time. I mean, and you feel within it his comfort. And also, I have enormous confidence in Gonzalo, not asking him questions every 2 minutes. In fact, I don't think I ever have to do that unless it's when you're working with another actor, but I trust him. We made a movie 9 years ago, which was originally called The Man on Carrion Road and was retitled The Hollow Point, which is a Western noir, and a very good one, by the way. It just got lost in distribution hell at the time. But with Patrick Wilson, John Leguizamo, and Jim Belushi, me. And again, it's a really Jose David, who's his regular cinematographer, photographed that. And we did. We had a great time on that together. And I thought he's, love to work with him again. A year later, he came up with this. And here we are sitting 9 years later talking about a project that we're both very proud of. We did. It felt like a dream. Actually, it felt like a dream now when I think about flying there. Yeah. A year and a half ago in spring 2022. Went to England for a couple of days just to, sort a couple of things out. Got on a package tour plane to Fuerteventura with my producing partner, Michael Elliott. We went out there. They were there. We did a couple of days of camera tests and rehearsals and costume tests and on the beach. And then away we went. Filmed for 25 days. Very civilized. Got up in the mornings, had breakfast, filmed, sun went down, little dinner, following day. Then we flew home on the package tour. And it's like, did that happen? And we got a film out. And it was like, it's nobody looking over your shoulder. The money was spent well. I know that. It's all up there on the screen. There's no wasted money anywhere. There's no wasted footage anywhere. And it's one of those experiences that, and when you make an independent film with a really gifted bunch of people, it's like a small family army of people. You know, you go there, you respect where you film. I think it's mostly you respect where you film too.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, the situation we were in, because we filmed in, I mean, people were having holidays in the hotel when we were filming there, you know. It's one of those wonderful hotels too, whereby it's packaged your holidays. So when you go walk in, they give you a ribbon around your wrist to make sure, but the color of which denotes if you can drink till you fall down, or if you're only allowed coffee or breakfast or whatever. So we go very proudly around going, okay, well, hello. But it was just one of those experiences, and we got to film it.
You made sure you had the bar service alcohol.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're mentioning the rehearsal period, and obviously at that point, I mean, the two of you had been working on this project together for a long time. And once you had that rehearsal before filming with the rest of the cast and the rest of the team, what were kind of some of the details that you really wanted to figure out for the film or for all of your characters' relationships?
Cutting dialogue from Wilson's point of view.
Yeah.
Only what was necessary. I mean, really,
Really going through your lines and taking things out, because I mean, every project is different, but in this one particularly, really helpful was to do this table read at the very beginning, where we all agreed on the card.
So no time was wasted on the set when we came to do a scene. Nobody was like, oh, what? No,
but it was like a proper table read, like not like with the first AD reading. It was like all the actors. We were just commenting on every scene, and that was the final script. Then, I mean, we didn't have much more time for rehearsing, and there's one thing that I usually love to do, because I don't normally have many days for shooting as well, because I'm doing independent movie making, and you don't have the luxury of that. But from my very first film, I think I'm trying to do very accurate and exhaustive on camera tests. But for me, it's the first day of shooting. You know, like I have the chance already to have the characters and to have them with the costumes, and we try to go to the places where we're going to shoot it. So you don't go naked to the first day of shooting, and that's somehow a rehearsal, like a camera rehearsal. You know, like actors being a little on the character. Remember, you actually walking on the beach, and we're shooting. Actually, I don't know if sometimes you can even use those things for the film. Sometimes, you know, like it could be useful. That's it. I was trying to think, for example, like working with Adam the first time we talked, and I was about to tell him things about the character, and he understood it so good that he said, "Don't tell me anything. I'm going to show you a Ryan. You know, I'm going to be Ryan for you. And then if you don't like it or something, you know, we can try. But I'm going to be there." I mean, I was ready to like it. That was beautiful. It was great.
No.
And Ian, I also wanted to ask you about your scenes with Oscar Coleman, who plays a young kid in the film, because I love how it gives us this window into kind of the inner child of your character that doesn't get to kind of peek out very often. And I've heard you say that you semi-improvised in the scenes with him. And so I was just interested in how you kind of set about making sure that you were getting everything you needed from the scene, but also left space to kind of play with him and to have that inner child yourself.
Well, I mean, I say improvising. It was mainly about how many times you could play keepy up with the ball in sand and soccer skills, which, you know, don't translate well as you get older sometimes. But we managed. So we had to, what was originally written, but we did it. The main point of it was the bet. But also we had to film those scenes, you know, at times of day. Again, getting back to the technical quality of the film. He wanted the look of early morning. So a really early morning before the beach has been set up. That first scene when Oscar finds me. And then the final scene with Oscar, which is the one up on the roof, which is filmed at magic hour, just before darkness descends. So both in those cases, you have a limited amount of time, but it never seemed limited. We just get out there, did it, and then did the next scene. I mean, and it was very easy with it. But I mean, I think once you establish a rapport, the kid's good. He has this wonderful, he's deadpan, his Oscar, isn't he? He has this natural deadpan of I'm funny, like, I mean, I think, but that was one of his things. He was like, I love that. The fact he was like, why don't you? And he had this sort of look behind him. And he had a sort of a melancholy to him as well, which I found extraordinary in a kid that young, a lovely kid.
But it was beautiful that he was acting like a kid, because when you see a casting sometimes of kids, they've been trained and they act like adults, and then it creates something in your brain like, but Oscar was just being a kid, just playing the role.
Yeah.
And with Nora, which is a circumstance which changed because the actress changed, a month before. Was it a month? About a month
or yes.
A month literally, or a couple of weeks before, she was committed, the original actress who'd been committed to it all along, was suddenly found, I suppose, happens when nobody's sure about when an independent film can happen at this time. And she had broadly committed to something else and couldn't get out of it.
Yeah.
So Gonzalo, we talked about it, and he found Nora. And Nora,
I think Nora found that.
I don't know.
Really?
What?
Yeah, because I was in with the casting list, like
it's one of those things,
emergency situation, like we shoot in a couple of weeks and we go through the list. And then I got a message from the casting director that an agent called her saying that Nora wanted to,
make you talk.
Yeah, he showed her the script and he loved it, and I just had a conversation with her, and that's it. That was it. And she brought to the character something
a different quality because she was 15 years younger than the original lady, Elena, right?
Yeah,
Elena, and who I'd never met, but I know we were always thinking. But then, and what happened there? If I maybe just take away time for a minute. Is that there could have been a romantic connection between me and Eleanor, the elder, elder, it's not old, but I mean, we're getting aging now. But age is important because for somebody of Nora's age, you don't want to feel there's any weirdness between her and Wilson. It's not that kind of attraction. It's something else. It's something recognized, a melancholy, a feeling, something you may have met before, a circumstance. She knows he's not from the island. He's not the typical visitor. Whatever, she loves the ship for whatever reason. She introduces him to her mother, and he goes along with it in a way against his best instincts. But at least it gives him some kind of life. It brings the life out in him, which I don't think he's had for quite some time. Despite what it might lead to in the end, he's experiencing life, which he hasn't done allowed himself to do for quite some time.
Yeah, and it's, I think you touched on such a great point about it's him exploring a life that he hasn't been able to have. And if this is going to be his last job, he's kind of playing around with the idea of what could it look like to actually be able to connect with people, to not have to be invisible and live on the outskirts of the world. And so for both of you, how did you find what you felt like the important things to him would be, like finding that human connection, finding his inner child, the playfulness that we get to see in him, and kind of who he might want to be in the future?
Yeah, like that was part probably of the script, that we wanted to confront him with different elements of his life, like all the characters that are there to remind him of the lost opportunities or the missed life, like Oscar is that grandson that he never had, or the inner child, as you said, but then he can see in Ryan what he used to be, that hitman, that person, and he understands what he did to Ryan and what Ryan became, what he created, the monster, that monster that himself feels like that. And at the end, when he sees Ryan killing this other guy, and he sees it like in the screen, it's like a reflection of his life, like what he used to be and what he used to do, or who he actually does. And
I also think as a director, you give a lot of character their full due. I mean, Andres is great.
Yeah.
Like, he's not just a peripheral character. You see him at times, the drug dealer, the low tie, the friend of Glorious, whatever. They have a life. They're not just people that pass through the screen. they have their own character, they have their own thing to bring out and give to Wilson. And the disappointment that happens to him at the end, it's good.
Yeah. We wanted to confront Wilson with different aspects, specific aspects of his lives, and every character was there for that, to portray that part of his life.
Yeah. And Gonzalo, I mean, I love what you were talking about at the beginning in terms of the framing and how you've used the camera, and thinking back to the opening shots. When we first go into the house with Wilson, we don't see everything completely because he doesn't see everything completely. So you're using reflections and kind of just seeing a character from behind in a lot of instances, and you carry that throughout. And so how did you kind of set about always making sure that you were creating that very specific look and feel what he sees?
That also adds, I think, to we were talking about before, that having casting the two characters at the end who Wilson deals with, having Thomas Kretschmann and Sabella play it, two actors in it, which was a testament to him, because they're both individual terrific actors, but they did this part, I mean, they're non-speaking part, but they came in and created a whole other world in that last scene, which makes that last scene believable. When normally it would have been just like, it doesn't matter, we just need the two people. No, they, even in that brief space of time, created some people that you knew about or knew something about them before the denouement, which again is a testament to him as a director and the thought out about, the way a film should be. Because we know that's what it is. If you don't care about people, that's it, no matter all the homework you've done. But you have to invest. You also have to invest. You can't assume that people automatically identify with characters. You have to give them their full weight. Or sometimes it's just it's the way you do it. And he has the ability to do that as a filmmaker.
Knowing that the film was going to end there, it was helping me to do it at the beginning. Knowing where I'm going. So I normally love to repeat shots because I think it's a way for the audience to understand the game, and you're doing it for a reason. So that's why the beginning and the end, it's similar. But also, I wanted to create this situation where Wilson sneaks inside the house, and it's like a choreography, like a dance, until the moment he hears something, and then he disappears and he becomes the ghost, and then he just see glimpses of what's happening. You become Wilson inside the house, and then you see him again when he gets outside of the house. But I needed that moment because that's you're not going to see the house until the very end again, so you need to understand the architecture of the house.
No, it's such a great description of the idea that he kind of comes and goes like a ghost, that you're not sure if you ever saw him. And I mean, Ian, what goes into playing a character where you're kind of in essence trying to always just blend into the background and, carry out a lot of characteristics where he's never making himself noticeable to people around him?
It's when he arrives on the island and the intel is wrong, and he says, come back, and he goes, no, I like it here. I mean, the film is then irrevocably on course for what happens, but it's the way it happens. And Wilson is no longer, he's like, as I said, he commits his cardinal rule. He goes back, he finds out, he drives, and he goes to the bar for a drink, and I'm thinking, I'll be over the next day. Then he sees the ship. And then he gets delayed again, and he gets involved, and he talks to her, and it's like, without even realizing, he's drawn himself into something that he normally wouldn't do. That's all. Life can happen. Life takes twists. It's actually, character would never do that. People, human beings, fuck up all the time, not necessarily deliberately, but for maybe good reasons. But that happens to him, and it's like, oh God, what have I? But he doesn't have that. He's then set on course that will take place, and he doesn't second guess until the scene with Gloria, perhaps, when he starts to realize. But then it's the denouement of the movie, and the movie takes its natural course. And because movies are 2 hours of surprise in the darkness. I mean, that's what's wonderful about it. You know, we never know what you'll get, the emotions you'll get.
One of the things I like of the character, what you were saying, is that when he decides to stay on the island, then he doesn't need to hide anymore.
No.
But he's not buying himself a new outfit or anything like that. He's being the same one, wearing the dark shirt and everything, but nobody cares. Everybody is on holiday. Nobody cares. He just walk around and being himself.
Nobody notices anything.
Yeah.
You know, no. Only I do. I often, because that's what I do for a living.
Yeah.
But the amount of people that don't see anything. They'll look up. They're too concentrated on their own lives.
On their own holiday.
They're quite on their own holiday, but absolutely. So, you know.
And Gonzalo, I also wanted to ask about just some of the details that you created to make sure that we fully believe and buy into Wilson's character, to his kind of history from the very beginning. It's things like watching him drive off road and leave the car somewhere else when he gets to the hotel. The fact that he doesn't have changes of clothes at the beginning. He has one thing to put in the closet because he wasn't planning to stay. And so for you, what were some of the important details like that you wanted to make sure to include on screen for audiences?
Well, I mean, I have to say that most of those details are because my friend here, Mr. McShane, is really, really accurate with details and props and things like that. He understands his character, and then he brings a lot of those things to the table. But I was more, I mean, I love those things because he tells a lot of the character, you know, the fact that he buys a new great shirt, you know, and then you see it how he hangs it there, and the fact that you see him ironing his. But one of the things that I love is when I see him speaking in Spanish, listening to the radio and saying things about the Canarian Islands, beautiful. For me, that's what I wanted to do. You know, I wanted to be with him by myself, because normally there's someone there. He has to pretend or act differently with Max or with Nora, but being with him in the car, just listening to some music or some radio, and I can witness how he is for real. And he's a human being, normal, like saying beautiful island. I love it here. And that, I think that's the fastest way to connect with him and his humanity.
Well, I think you've both done a wonderful job in how you've told this story, and it's such a fascinating character to get to spend time with on screen. So thank you so much to both of you for talking about this, and congratulations on the film.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.